welcome to Inside Maine Tourism. My name is Kim Linloff, and I'm joined once again today by Vaughn Stinson. Welcome, Vaughn.
Great to be with you, Kim.
Today, we have Annie Salikas on, and she is the education coordinator for the Maine Lobstermen's Association.
Correct.
I'm hoping to hear from her about what's going on in the lobster industry, because it certainly has been on the front page of the paper every week this summer. Yep,
it has. A lot going on there, a lot more product than consumers. A lot more came to market earlier this year than it has in past years. It's a fascinating industry, and it's so important, as I'm sure we'll find out in our interview, to the tourism in Maine and what goes on, because they are synonymous. Maine lobster and coming to Maine and enjoying it with a beautiful summer like we've had this year, and hopefully going in the fall the same way, is really important to visitors.
Well, and it's the #1 aquaculture product, right? It's the #1 fish.
I think it is, yeah. I think it is the largest fishing product now, because it hasn't had quite as tight regulations as the shrimping industry and the flounder industry and halibut and cod and that type of thing.
Scallops, yep.
Scallops, right.
Well, Vaughn, I think I've been doing my share of eating more lobster this summer. I hope other Mainers have too. So let's tune in to Annie and see what she has to say about the Maine Lobstermen Association and lobster in the state of Maine.
Great idea.
You've heard it all before. Come locate your business in our region. At Mid-Maine, we've got a different message. We say, come visit the Waterville region and let us show you a great place to live, work, and play. You'll find we offer a diversified economy, progressive business climate, and an outstanding lifestyle. But don't take our word for it. Let us show you what we offer. It's easy to arrange a visit. Just a quick stop at the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce website will get you started.
Welcome back to Inside Maine Tourism. Today we're joined by Annie Salikas, and Annie is the education coordinator at the Maine Lobstermen's Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here, Annie.
Can you tell us, Annie, a little bit about the Maine Lobstermen's Association and what you do?
Sure. The MLA was founded in 1954 by a group of fishermen. It's a statewide organization, and the mission is to advocate for a sustainable lobster resource and the fishermen and communities that depend on it. So
it's membership driven?
It is membership driven. We have a board of 25 fishermen from all over the state. Right now our representation is from Cutler to Kittery on the board.
Wow.
But our members range from Kittery to Eastport. So we cover the entire coast. We hear from fishermen from all over the place on different issues, and the issues are, impact different fishermen in different places in different ways, because the fishery is different everywhere. You have cobble bottom in some places on the ocean floor. You've got harder tides in certain places, different economic situations in different communities. So you hear from a wider range of opinions and points of impact.
How many members do you have, roughly?
We have 1,200 members, so we are actually the oldest and the largest commercial fishing trade association on the East Coast.
I enjoy just about everything that comes from the ocean, seafood-wise or whatever. And of course, you always hear these things about overfishing and, the resource itself not being taken care of. How do we really sit in Maine with the Maine lobster and it's as a resource for what we do?
We're actually really lucky. You're right. There are a lot of fisheries around the world that are dealing with issues of overfishing or overfished resources or mismanagement. And we're lucky that in Maine, fishermen take lobster conservation very seriously. It's something that people have believed in for generations. We are at an unprecedented level of abundance for our lobster resource. We're very, very fortunate that our problem is not resource-based in this industry. And a lot of those rules and laws that fishermen fish by have been in place for generations, or some of them, and they evolve all the time. It's one of the actual benefits of working with the state versus working with the federal government in trying to manage this fishery. And, you know, a lot of the rules are done through a co-management process. So they start from fishermen instead of being a real top-down approach.
Annie, as I understand it, the federal government in other fisheries like the flounder fishing, that type of thing, they have a big say in that. I know down south in yellowtail and that type of thing. So they have, but on the Maine lobster, their federal is not involved in the fishing or regulation of it?
It is to a certain extent, but what fishermen really see here in Maine is working with Maine, working with the legislature, with the Marine Resources Committee. There's a fisherman-based advisory panel, the Lobster Advisory Council, that works very closely with the Department of Marine Resources and the Marine Resources Council to legislate different laws. We have local zone councils, so there's really good communication back and forth between the state and fishermen at the local level, which I think has been a great success.
But the federal's not involved in that directly.
It is. You do have. I mean, we definitely work with the federal government and with a regional management council called the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission.
Okay.
I was going to ask you about the relationship between tourism and lobster. It's obviously, and this probably should be a question from you, Vaughn, but obviously that's the first question out of so many tourist mouth is where can I get a lobster? Right. I even noticed on the new the farmers market, the Maine State Farmers Market website, that they have little pinpoints now which farmers markets that you can get lobsters at, which I thought was really neat. And we need to add that to our farmers market. I was like, we got to get on this. Yeah. So what other economic impact does lobster fishing have on the state of Maine's economy besides tourism?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a huge driver for tourism, and it's great for places in rural Maine like Jonesport or Beals or Stonington, because people really are drawn to places to go and see lobster boats, to get lobster fresh off the boat. So tourism, that overlap between lobster fishing and tourism is huge, but the value of our fishery is $350 million, roughly, on any given year. Sometimes it's a little more, a little less, depending on the boat price and the volume of lobsters landed. But it's a $1 billion a year industry to the state when you start to factor in things like the bait distribution, boat building, the infrastructure that we depend on to bring our lobsters to shore through different buying stations and dealers. When you look at marine supply stores, paying crew members, and so the ancillary businesses related to this industry are small businesses that are based in local communities, and those dollars stay local. So when you have fishermen that are getting paid for their catch, the conservative estimate for the economic multiplier for lobster landings in value is 4.5. So for every dollar that's landed through lobster fishing, we'll circulate around a community 4.5 times.
Wow. That's a wonderful
which has a huge economic impact.
Sure
well, and you mentioned earlier when we were talking about the membership that a lot of the rules have been in place generation to generation. Is that how lobstering works? I mean, it seems to me that would be how it worked. My grandfather did it, my father did it, now I do it.
You start to see more and more fishermen now trying to push their kids to go to school. I mean, when I lived in Stonington, a lot of my friends that are my age there, did a semester or a year at Husson or Eastern Maine Community College up in Bangor because their parents wanted them to go to school, and they got up there and they, partied a little too hard and just wanted to be fishing. And I think the culture and the tradition of this fishery is very strong, especially in places like Stonington and Jonesport and Cutler. It's not just your job, it's your life, it's your livelihood, it's the culture of the place that you come from. People take their kids out fishing on the weekends, and it's a lot of fun. So it is certainly passed down. Buoy colors are passed down. Your territory that you fish is passed down. But all fishermen have to go through an apprentice program in order to get their license.
Oh, okay.
So you have to earn your way into the fishery. You can't buy your way in.
There's a real mystique about someone who makes their living on the water. It really is. I mean, I wouldn't want to scare people, but it is a dangerous occupation. A lot of times you're by yourself or you're with another person. Weather changes quickly on the water. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, too, that I think is really important to us, and Kim brought up on the tourism side of things, the working waterfront. I know you folks have been really involved in that because that is really key to Maine's tourism success, I believe. People like to be able to come, and it's amazing. You come to downtown Portland, you can come down to Commercial Street and see where they're landing. You see boats going in and out. There's restaurants and things around there that, of course, have fresh seafood. It's hard to find that in many other coastal areas in New England. At least I haven't been able to find it as prevalent as we have it in Maine.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that there was some really good thought put into planning for our coastal communities and making sure that there are opportunities to maintain that really critical infrastructure along working waterfronts. You know, and the property that is dedicated to working waterfront in the state has been dwindling over the years. So, you know, through the Working Waterfront Access Pilot Program in conjunction with Coastal Enterprises, Inc. and the Island Institute and a variety of other organizations, we, through the MLA, have been able to collaborate with a lot of people to do that work to protect that really essential property.
Well, great. We've got a number of other things we want to cover yet, Annie, so we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with more of Inside Maine Tourism. Stay tuned.
You've heard it all before. Come locate your business in our region. At Mid-Maine, we've got a different message. We say, come visit the Waterville region and let us show you a great place to live, work, and play. You'll find we offer a diversified economy, progressive business climate, and an outstanding lifestyle. But don't take our word for it. Let us show you what we offer. It's easy to arrange a visit. Just a quick stop at the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce website will get you started.
Welcome back. Annie, when we went to break, we were talking about the lobster industry, and it's certainly been in the news this summer. You know, the price obviously has dropped. You can buy lobster cheaper per pound than you can get hamburger. How has that affected the industry, and where do you see things moving from here?
Sure. So one of the things that we're trying really hard to do is actually to start working on some messaging control and dealing with the marketing, because the word cheap and hot dogs and hamburgers and the lobster industry, you know, I mean, you're screaming, but it's, you know, trying to make sure that we are maintaining that quality level, because the Maine lobster is a quality product, and I think that we've suffered a lot through the media this spring and summer. But I think we've also learned a lot about how to better market our product, how to know our product better, position it in the proper marketplaces, both here in the United States and abroad. One of the things that we haven't dealt with in the last several years is the fact that our landings have increased almost 40 million pounds in the last 5 years, and we've just let the market absorb it. We haven't done a lot to promote that product, to try and build the demand that's necessary to keep the boat price in a more stable place and not deal with these massive fluctuations that really are challenging for the fishing industry from year to year.
So is that why the price came down?
There were a variety of factors this year. Our product is intrinsically tied with the lobsters that come in from Canada. We don't have a set fishing season. Canada, throughout the maritime provinces, has a variety of different fishing seasons, and their landings have been up too. And so between the two countries, we have increased our landings. We've done it sustainably. It's still a really wonderful product, but we need to find homes for these lobsters. And it sounds like a crazy problem to have, but it's one that we really need to start to manage.
More like a pot for each lobster.
More lobster
absolutely.
Is the message
well,
here.
you know, that brings me to something else, because I've had the good fortune of being able to travel quite a bit. And one of the things that has always struck me is when you go somewhere, and just recently I was over, and I realize it's not traveling a lot, but I was in New Hampshire. There's a huge sign there in a very large tourism area in New Hampshire saying Maine lobsters packed to ship and travel. Now, they lobster in New Hampshire, but the name is a Maine lobster. I've spent a lot of time down south. You go into any fishmonger there, you go to any of the stores that handle them, it's always a Maine lobster. It could be, I suppose, from some other area of New England, but that's how people know it. We really do own that brand, I think. What are we doing to work on that?
Well, that's a really interesting point. I mean, so the animal is so commonly referred to as a Maine lobster when you see it in marketplaces, in retail and restaurant. We had a woman tell us a story about being at Morton's Steakhouse in Virginia Virginia, and they wheel the cart out, and you get to see all the different dishes that you have the opportunity of buying. And the lobster clearly had Massachusetts whale-safe bans on it, but it's a Maine lobster on the menu. And she really took the waiter and the manager of Morton's to task on the fact that, I'm from Maine. I'm proud of the Maine brand. I'm proud of our Maine lobster product. And we need to protect it, and we do need to protect it. A Maine lobster is a lobster from Maine. And that's something that we're really starting to work towards as we think about reshaping the marketing entity, about reinvesting in marketing and promoting Maine lobster. We really need to protect the Maine lobster brand.
Well, and there's been a lot of talk around processing and how we need to do more processing in Maine. Will that help? Is there a need for more processing plants?
I think that there is a need, but I don't think that it's the silver bullet that a lot of people are making it out to be. We've heard different processors from here in Maine say the same exact thing, that to just increase processing capacity without also increasing the market and the demand for the product
makes sense.
Isn't going to solve our problems. We need to be able to promote our product as well, because a glut of lobsters is a glut of lobsters, whether it's a live animal or it's processed and in cold storage. You need the lobster to be able to keep on moving throughout the supply chain, so that you're creating more space for more lobsters to come in, be processed and moved, and keep the cycle going. So we need to do both.
Do the airports in Maine, if I checked in and I've gone through security and I wanted to buy lobsters to ship, to carry on the plane with me, is that available now in Bangor and Portland?
That's a really good question. I haven't seen lobster tanks in the airports.
Yeah,
but a lot of lobster businesses, like if you're walking down Commercial Street in Portland, for example, a lot of them will pack to ship, and you can they'll pack them, cold, raw, live, still moving, and send them back to Tennessee or Montana or wherever you came from. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of businesses in Maine that have gotten really efficient at FedExing and UPSing lobsters. You'll pay for it, but to have that lobster fresh once you get home, or you can send it to your friends or family in California or Washington State. That's really been a huge advantage.
And I think that's one of the things too that's going to be very interesting and challenging, because of the marketing side of things, and as an education coordinator, I'm sure you're involved in that as well. But coming up here in the next few days, the governor and entourage will leave for Hong Kong on a sales mission, and part of that mission is they will be presenting to that market the Maine lobster. There'll be a number of producers there, I understand, will be going along as well. Internationally, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us there, and a lot of the product, because one of the things that I think has been the biggest challenge this year is I guess it was an abnormally large amount of the soft shells coming on earlier, which do not transport. Most people might know. My understanding on that is, Annie, maybe 10 hours or so you can drive a soft shell where you can fly a hard shell. Is that about right?
Yes, a soft shell lobster is much more challenging to ship than a hard shell lobster. Okay. But as we come into the fall, we start to see a hard shedder, and we start to get into our hard shell lobsters again, and those can ship very well. A hard shedder can ship really nicely to Europe. But when you're talking about going to Asia, it is a much longer trip.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to, you want all of your logistics, every single plane connection to work, smoothly. Right. So, this is another great case for increasing processing capacity, because you can freeze those lobsters in the shell. You could, you can cook them, you can process them, and they'll ship no problem to the Asian market, and which is a constantly expanding market for us.
And that was something I never realized that you could do, is you can blanch a lobster like you blanch carrots, and put them up in the shell in your freezer. Like,
I didn't realize you could do that.
That's totally cool. Who knew that?
Yeah, just a few minutes and then freeze them, flash freeze them. Well, I've seen them in the stores that way. I don't know if they carry them here, but I've seen them out of state where they're cryovac. It's a whole lobster. It's got the beautiful red color to it, and I guess you just reheat it in warm water and off you go.
The technology for processing has changed a lot in recent years. There are a lot of different techniques that people use, and it really preserves the quality, the color, all of the things that you want in a good quality product. And when you think about how you get your chicken, if you're buying chicken at the grocery store, you're not buying a live animal, you're buying chicken breast in the package. Some of them are individually wrapped. There are a variety of different ways that you can get that product. And we need to be doing that product innovation and research and development for the lobster industry as well.
It seems that even before this summer, lobster's been introduced in more unique ways. I mean, lobster mac and cheese seems to be like on everybody's menu now. Whoever, even in the freezer, whoever even heard of that.
Yeah, and there are some great Maine companies doing that work. I mean, Hancock Gourmet, Calendar Islands, Maine Lobster. Some of them are producer owned. So you're seeing changing business models in this industry as well. Those value-added products in the freezer case and in the refrigerator section and the grocery stores. I mean, there's a lot of product development going on. And,
well, I know it came up early in our conversation. They've just been through a big remodel at the Portland Jetport, and Linda Bean has a restaurant out there, and you can pack and ship lobster from her restaurant.
Oh, from her restaurant. Okay.
And that is one of the things. It's much easier to get through security than 4 ounces of shampoo is, to be honest with you.
Well, if you already passed it,
right?
Yes,
yeah. I mean, especially like I was thinking of Bangor because we are taking a direct nonstop to Florida, and it would be just really easy to grab them, jump on our direct nonstop.
Yeah.
Slide down to Florida and be there and give them to our neighbors and stuff.
But it's a fascinating conversation, Annie. It really, really is, and it's so important to the Maine economy from what we're doing. I wish we had more time to get further into it, but really appreciate what we've been able to discuss today, and I know our viewers will be very intrigued with it as well. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more of Inside Maine Tourism.
And we're back on Inside Maine Tourism. We just spoke to Annie Salikas of the Maine Lobstermen's Association. It was as fascinating as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it really is, and it's such a dynamic industry, and the things that go along with it. And as we were saying during the interview, it's so important to the tourism product in Maine, the tourism image in Maine. And this year has been especially challenging with so many soft shell lobster coming online right away. And, processing is something that we have some processors in Maine, but, how do you gauge for when you have a whole lot of product coming in, when you have the, the normal amount of product coming in? It really is very, very challenging. I guess the best thing that we ought to tell all of our viewers is to eat more lobster while you're here, which is really important.
Although I anticipated her answer before we asked the question to be, yes, we need more processors, and that is the silver bullet. And she said, well, yeah, but you got to create the demand too. I guess it's a vanity. I just always assumed that there was just this huge demand for Maine lobster and we couldn't keep up. But apparently that's not the case.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, her story about the lady that was dining out and, it was a Maine lobster is what the advertisement was, but found out it was from another New England state. And, I think that's one of the things that I have found particularly interesting with the folks that are born and raised and call Maine home, even people like myself that moved in. You really understand the value of that Maine name and the quality that it means. People really do see us that way, that we have a great product, whether it be lobsters or blueberries or whatever we are doing. Of course, in the case of this one, I think we really do own the name.
Yeah.
Maine.
I mean, if you get a lobster in the Caribbean, it's like, what is that little scrawny thing?
It looks like a crawdad.
Yeah.
It doesn't look anything at all like what you have here at Maine. It really isn't the same. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Inside Maine Tourism, and you'll join us again very soon. Thanks for watching.